What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Scythe. We are back again with more Trove. Why are we hanging out in the hub? Well, I'll tell you why, guy. I wanted to talk about what you guys ended up mentioning on my crafting the bee dragon video. So many of you ended up being very critical of it, saying that the dragon's not impossible. It's actually super duper easy. So I wanted to address that issue right here, right now, and say that I ended up actually taking feedback from you guys on the community page, or community tab, I guess I should say, of my YouTube channel. And it seemed on average, people were farming the dragon within 10 to 20 hours. These are people that actually farmed out the entire dragon. Because otherwise, I noticed that a lot of the people that were saying how easy the bee dragon was would end up farming maybe like 5 fragments in 20 minutes in Shadow Towers. And then they just said like, oh, well then by all means, it should be easy to get the rest without actually getting all of the rest. And the other big reason why I would say that the dragon is still a lot harder than most people think is because that's also completely random. It's based off of Shadow Towers actually generating with tons and tons of bee enemies, because if you don't have those bee enemies in the Shadow Towers, I would still argue the fact that that dragon is extremely difficult to get. But that's not what we're going to be spending today talking about. Today we're going to be talking about just the same old stuff, what's been going on with Trove. I wanted to also kind of address and talk about some of the things that I still enjoy about the game. But before we get into, you know, my list of why I'm still playing Trove, because it's a very common question that I get from lots of people. And I kind of already talked about this in my last, I think that was the last Let's Play episode. But I wanted to kind of go into a bit more detail and have the focus be more on that rather than my loyalty points, because that's what the last video was, right? But before we get into it, I did want to mention something that you probably already noticed, in that I have not really been as into Trove. I've kind of been struggling with keeping regular episodes of Trove. Not so much that I don't have, like, it's not that I'm out of ideas or anything. I've got a huge list of videos that I can potentially end up doing for Trove. But in all honesty, I've been very uninspired, guys. Like, I just gotta tell you straight how it is. You know, not uninspired towards making YouTube videos in general, or content in general and stuff like that. But most of all, just uninspired towards Trove. Like, it seems like the devs just have completely abandoned the project, you know? Like, it's weird. It's like, it's not that they've abandoned Trove by any means, but we haven't heard anything from them. And whenever they end up doing their streams, it's like, they've got to start talking about U10 and start keeping us in the loop of what's actually going on. I don't care if the update has been delayed until the winter. That doesn't mean the initial release wasn't planned for October. So they're like, oh, well, since it's coming out in the winter, we're just not going to talk about it. Like, seriously, they got to start getting some hype for it, because even for me, like, it's like, I'm grinding and just wondering why. But at the same time, I guess kind of the biggest thing is, it's like my eyes are open, you know, and you know, lots of people have been noticing that I've been so overly critical in the comments, and I think it's just because it's getting to that time. I've been playing this game for how long and expecting it to end up getting better than it is, and it's just not. I don't think it's ever going to. But you know, I don't want to have this as one of those overly critical videos where I'm just saying what the game could have been and stuff like that. Most of all, my point being is that, you know, we're sitting here waiting on U10, and until then, it's like, what's the point in even playing, you know? And I've just been enjoying playing a lot of the era games on the channel, like, you know, Fortnite, Cube World, and all that stuff. MapleStory 2 is coming out right away, and that's going to be another free-to-play game that's going to eat up a lot of my time, because, in all honesty, the game is better than Trove. That said, I still love Trove, and now see that sweet transition. I still love Trove for what it is at its base mechanic, you know? I can't agree with the developers' decisions, you know, especially with how they end up developing the content towards what doesn't really seem like the player base, you know? Like, the fact that they've been talking about how sometime next year they're going to be overhauling the gardening. And we've already talked about this before, but it's like, why? Nobody wants the gardening or any of the professions to be overhauled. They work fine the way that they are. Unless they're going to make it easier for us, then okay, sure. But we know more than likely it's just so that they can end up making it more pay to win, because they want to just make every single aspect of this game pay to win, which is unfortunate. And I mean, you know, out of all my years of playing Trove, I haven't really been like, I've always kind of been critical about the game because I've been playing this game for such a long time. I'm very passionate about it. I want it to succeed. I want it to be better than it is, you know? And because of it, I try to say the features that I would be looking forward to, and a lot of you tend to agree with me, where we want to have more adventure content, because adventuring is the lifeblood of this game. Like, it's funny how clearing dungeons is the most satisfying thing that we can do in this game, yet it's the one aspect of the game that has barely seen any changes since the closed beta version that I started playing years ago. Like, we've seen a few small iterations of change, but not really anything like revolutionary, right? That's why so many of us are holding our breath for U10, hoping that it's going to end up being something cool and unique. But even that is starting to seem like, you know, it's not going to happen as much, just because in the more recent dev streams and stuff like that, they keep dropping all these weird hints about U10, and it's not sounding as exciting as we once all thought it was, you know, with the addition of the new gear being available in U10, the new gems just being available in the new geode surface biome, which is going to be U8 and up, and then on top of it, the new gear having like armor penetration as one of the stats that they revealed. There's going to be more, which, you know, immediately made me and so many other people really, really excited, because we were sitting there thinking that they were going to do what they promised us years ago when they started talking about U10, where they would overhaul the combat and overhaul the classes and stuff like that. But it seems like that's not the case, because as they've talked about, now they've said that these stats will only work in U10. They're not going to end up working in the Shadow Tower. So it seems like they're doing the traditional thing that they have been doing since I started this game, where they're adding a whole bunch of new features that aren't going to end up working with the rest of the game, and that's very, very disheartening. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've kind of been, you know, taking a break from Trove and just kind of moving away. Like, it's like, this is the biggest break I've ever taken from Trove, where I'm just kind of logging in, grinding out my dailies, and just grinding dungeons and, you know, hanging out in streams and stuff like that, because that is what's fun for me. I love doing dungeons. I love playing with you guys. And more recently, you know, I've been giving away some stellars in my live streams and stuff, and it's been fun. You know, the community is definitely where it's at, and that's what's going to keep me playing this game for years to come. I want to be very openly clear about the fact that despite that I don't feel inspired to make as many videos of Trove lately, it doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that I'm going to abandon the game. I'm going to be stuck playing Trove for the rest of my conceivable life with the YouTube channel. But then on top of it, I wouldn't want to abandon the game that has been single-handedly what has grown my channel, you know? Even if games like MapleStory, I do think has a lot more potential to be a more popular game, not only in terms of the game itself, but even on the YouTube channel. I think it'll end up being a lot better overall, just because the game itself has a lot more going for it, you know, with proper raids and dungeons and stuff like that. Whereas with Trove, all we've got for the closest to a raid is a Shadow Tower, which is fairly lackluster. Now, I don't mean to go on to any of these rants, guys. Most of all, the reason why I've been so overly critical is because I'm frustrated, okay? I'm really, really frustrated that this game has had such a long time to sit here and get better. And I think the biggest, you know, thing that I don't like about it, you know, the biggest thing that's been frustrating me the most lately is the fact that it's like, it's getting to the point where the devs saying that the game engine, you know, is the reason why we can't develop content that's more complicated, or that, you know, they've got other priorities, or that players don't want a mini map in the game, so it wouldn't end up being worth it, blah, 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 blah. Essentially, the part that's getting so frustrating for me is the excuses, and that's what it's starting to sound like more and more in terms of the development of this game. And I know I said I wasn't going to go on to too negative of a rant here, but I just want to kind of out my feelings here and let you guys know that I'm gonna always be honest with you guys. Even if you think that the videos are starting to get like overly critical, you gotta understand that it's like, enough is enough. Just start listening to the community, start making the game better. And I'm not saying that my opinion represents the Trove community by any means. It's just that you know, being the most popular of the YouTubers for Trove does, I think, hold a little bit of opinion of what the audience actually wants, in terms of we share a lot of the same opinion of where this game should end up being developed. Now, I've talked about this many times in live streams about what they could end up doing with overhauling the classes, what they could do for new classes, but I more recently have been talking about what they could end up doing to not overhaul anything, but just generally it would be a very quick, easy thing that they could do to make the game a lot more interesting. And I remember talking about this years ago as well, but I want to see more rampages. I want to see more sub biomes. You know, I want to see that content being developed, because that's the only content that immediately ends up affecting the player. And then I also really would love to see, like, having the elite bosses, like this guy right here, having those guys generate that end up having gear. It was a great iteration when they ended up adding it, but I want to see more than just dungeons in terms of things that we can complete. Because the funny thing is that we've got, like, you know, this game that we all love, have been playing for how long, it has been in development for even longer, and we've got 1-star dungeon, 3-star dungeon, have 3 Trovian dungeon. And that's it. There is no variation in the most grindy part of the entire game. Like the funnest aspect, I would argue, which is just farming and grinding and stuff like that. And even then, the only reason, you know, people even log into Trove is they log in to get their shadow towers out of the way, and then for the most part they just don't end up logging in anymore. If you're a more dedicated player, the only incentive you have is to end up grinding your tomes for the week. Otherwise, anybody else that's trying to grind is grinding for either gem dust or the very odd chance of actually getting gear, which is very unlikely for a lot of starting players, until you end up having a lot of the dragons, which, you know, to go back to the point of the bee dragon, my point wasn't saying, like, I wasn't trying to say that the bee dragon was absolutely impossible. I was trying to say that it's very difficult, especially compared to the fact that you could just pay to win, drop down some money, and then end up getting the dragon, which essentially ends up giving you some magic find. And one of my biggest gripes with the game is that they seem to be desperately trying to make every aspect of the game pay to win, instead of only having a few handful events, you know? Which, this is Tryon Worlds. This is what they do. This is what they've done with other games long before Trove ended up coming into play, you know? They always placate or make these games and design their cash up towards the cash whales that are still playing the game, rather than bringing in new customers, right? And it's very disappointing, yes, but I still love this game, man. You're sitting there wondering, like, why all you do is complain in your videos, and all you're doing right now is just complaining, so why are you still playing this game? I've already told you, I love the community. Like, seriously, you guys have been good to me. I'm never going to end up abandoning you. But on top of it, again, it's just this. What we're doing right now, I find so fun. And I wish that there was more to it, because I already find it fun, but I wish that there was more to it, just so that it would actually be even more fun. Because the funny thing is that this is nothing. You have to be crazy. Yes, you have to be absolutely insane to enjoy Trove at the level that I do, where you're just doing the same thing for absolutely no reason. You know, like, what am I grinding for? More stellar souls that I'm going to end up, like, loot collecting the stellar and radiant gear just for more souls? Why? Because one day maybe we'll end up actually having something of value that gets added to the game where we have to use them, or the new astral gear, or whatever it's going to end up being called, end up being something where it's like, oh, suddenly my stellar souls are that much more valuable. You know, we're always waiting for these quick fixes of either the in-game economy to end up ironing itself out, because for free-to-play players, there's not really that much you can even do in this game right now. I don't know why I went that way. I thought that was another part of the dungeon. But it's like, you think about for free-to-play players, there's not really that much you can do in terms of grinding for flux anymore because gear is essentially useless. And that's going to end up happening with the new gear regardless of, you know, the spurt that we're going to have of the new gear comes out. Suddenly Stellar and Radiant Souls become more useful because we're probably going to have to use them for the new gear. But it won't matter because if the gear is untradeable, then it's not, you know, then it's just the same old problem that Trove's been dealing with for a very, very long time, where for some strange reason the developers keep on developing this game as if it's a single player game that you happen to be able to play online. Like, look at the Chaos Chest items when they ended up making all of that untradeable. It didn't make any sense. And it especially doesn't make sense. Like, let me just put this into perspective here, because I think this is hilarious. I've thought about this for a long time, but it's like, you have it so that these items that you get out of the Chaos Chest aren't tradable, right? But the items with which you end up using to craft any of these, all of these items are tradable except for the Chaos Cores. So it's like the Chaos Cores, in all honesty, you know, that is pretty much the only thing that's keeping us, or the only reason why they even have all these items being untradeable, you know? Because maybe it's because they want to try and drive more sales towards Chaos Chest, but no one's enough of an idiot to end up buying Chaos Chest from the cash shop in the first place, because it's just not worth it. Like, but anyways, guys and gals, I'm just talking about the same old things that I've been talking about for the past few months, in all honesty. Like, since 2018, one of the things that I would argue is that the new lead developer has done a fantastic job with developing new content and adding new content for sure. Like, even this whole geode area, I think it's absolutely awesome that they ended up taking an effort to actually add this new area. They even bothered making the worst map I've ever seen in a video game, and just tried something new with all of the mining and stuff like that, which I really, really like. But then unfortunately, they hit it, they threw it behind a huge paywall, probably the biggest paywall Trove has ever seen. The Geode update was the most expensive pay-to-win update that I've ever been a part of in this game. And it seems like with every new update, we're getting even more of a bigger paywall in terms of time-gated content, and then also just RNG. Random number generation. So, the Geode update was extremely expensive because of the fact that it took a little while to figure out, like, where do you actually end up spending your money towards? And it turns out it's the same as anywhere else. You spend your money on credit pouches so that you can sell those, get some flux, and then you end up getting, like, crystal pinatas and junk like that. But unfortunately, the developers, not being able to test anything themselves, haven't been able to listen to our feedback to realize, this is just criticizing Geode as a whole, that the crystal pinatas, they ended up making it so that the gear, like the helmet, the weapons and stuff like that, are more common in the drop tables, meaning that crystal is less common. Because that's the biggest thing about the Geode update, is it's completely unbalanced, and the developers refuse to admit that it is, because they sit there and they look at the statistics and go, well, everything seems fine. Metamatter's a problem, but more importantly, crystals are a problem. It's way too difficult to end up getting them. You gotta grind them for 1,000,000 years. And this whole system of hatching these eggs, stupid. Absolutely stupid. Make the golden and silver eggs more common, then I would actually end up grinding them instead of just doing bronze eggs every single day. And even then, I barely end up coming in here. But the only reason I'm talking about all of this stuff, because who cares about the Geode update? I'm talking about this because I think that this is a prime example of what we can expect in the future. And in a lot of ways is a way that we can end up determining what they're going to end up doing with U10. They've already hinted at it and talked about how U10, when we end up going out to the Geode surface, is going to end up having new ore and plants that are completely unrelated to the Geode caves that we've already seen. For some reason, the surface has different ore. Get over yourselves, guys. Mining ore is not fun, But then on top of it, we know that there's going to be lots of time-gated content. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised. Like, I've been speculating so much in my latest streams about what are they going to end up doing. And the biggest, the biggest thing that I'm leaning towards, which I this is just the worst thing possible that I could think of that they would end up doing with U10. Is they're going to make it so that going out and grinding dungeons is going to be a little different, because maybe each of the dungeons is going to end up containing like some sort of Titan boss or something like that. Something's going to end up being a bit more unique about the dungeons. I wish it was more of an infinite raid or something where you'd go inside the dungeon, a gate would be locked until you defeat a bunch of enemies or attack some switches so that you can end up progressing, and overall just making your grinding a little bit more stimulating, right? But I would expect that, or I wouldn't put it past them to make it so that whatever new item you end up getting from these dungeons would end up being a chest or a loot crate that would end up having the same stupid thing as the bronze eggs. You know, where it's on a timer. And then maybe this time around they could end up doing it right. I'm saying that like it's a bad thing. I'm being sarcastic. Where they do it right, where you would end up having a cash shop way of actually opening those boxes quicker. You know what I mean? Again, that's not going to happen. That's just the absolute worst case scenario of what I could think of them doing. And, you know, I think that them moving towards like a loot crate system that is a little bit smarter could end up being really cool. For starters, every box in the game needs to have a karma bar. But then on top of it, the boxes themselves need to generally be more common, just because the box drop rates are just so astronomically ridiculous and in the favor of you losing and just getting garbage resources, you know? I don't know. There's so many things I could criticize about this game that I would like to have better. And I only would say that my opinion should end up being valued here because I am like the #1 fan of this game. You know, like I love this game. I really just want more from it. And I mean, ultimately, who cares about all the other systems that are in the game? I'm just going to reiterate the same point where it's like, I could care less about them fixing the game crashing, and so, well, fixing the crashing should be the biggest priority, honestly, optimizing the game. But I would love for them to actually take some time off from developing the game and reallocate where they should end up focusing their attention, because we don't need to see new gardening, and it sounds like U10 might end up being a flop anyways, and just give us more to adventure content. Give us a better building system, because honestly speaking, those are the only two aspects of the game that people are interested in, is either just building in their club worlds or just adventuring. So why do they keep on adding content that keeps pulling us away from our club worlds? Because for some reason they really don't like us hanging out in our clubs. Like, give us the Trovian Atlas, for example. There's no reason not to. We've got portals, which in all honesty are a lot more convenient than the Trovian Atlas, but just give us the Trovian Atlas, you know, not to mention the fixtures and everything like that. Like, they've done a lot of really good things with the game, but still all it's really doing is changing numbers, you know, and giving us more things that are, you know, worth grinding towards. Like, you look at Adventurine, it's a joke. It was implemented so badly, you know, the fact that we can't just grind dungeons indefinitely to end up grinding this new resource, Adventurine. Instead, we got to keep on coming back to our club world like idiots just to end up grinding the quest or grabbing the quest over and over. Like, it's like they really didn't think about that. Anyways, you guys don't need to hear it. I'm hoping that U10 is just going to end up blowing us away. But until then, the only update that's coming, near as I can tell, is there's going to be one in the beginning of October, which they haven't talked about at all. And then they're going to end up having the Halloween update October 23rd. So until then, honestly speaking, guys and gals, things are a lot less exciting for me. I've been enjoying my job of just doing YouTube and stuff, been enjoying doing live streams and everything, but I'm just here to tell you that the actual like Trove episodes and stuff like that right now, like you're gonna see some days where there's not gonna be a Trove video, or where it's just going to end up being a stream rather than like some more interesting content, just because I'm kind of half taking a little bit of a break from the game. I'm still playing it, I'm still enjoying it, but I really don't want to burn myself out right now, and I'm just waiting for the devs to actually give us some news, which potentially they end up, you know, they're going to be streaming later today, so fingers crossed they end up actually showing us some stuff about U10, or even so, telling us that we can go onto the test server, which is not going to happen until like in the winter, right? But anyways, I rambled long enough. I just wanted to get all that stuff off my chest, everybody. Still love this game. Still love you all for being a part of the community. You know, it's just, I'm never going to end up abandoning this game, so you don't got to worry about that. but there are still things that desperately need attention from the devs. Like, this is not okay what's happening. Like, especially right now, just the most immediate thing that the devs need to fix that they for some reason don't seem to realize is a huge problem: the crashes. It's really, really bad. Ever since the improvements update, they fixed the issue with Flux, which completely broke the in-game economy, and then they ended up all going on vacation saying it was fixed instead of just re-rolling us all back, which, I mean, that whole Flux thing really did break the economy. There's people that are quitting the game in droves because now they have infinite Flux, and they didn't get banned. They didn't have their accounts rolled back or anything like that. It was a very lazy fix from the devs where they didn't just take the servers down or reset everything, because seriously, like, it was bad, dude. It's still bad. It doesn't matter that you can sell things for higher Flux values. But anyways, that needed to be fixed. And then just the crashes. That's the biggest thing right now. Also, they need to just start talking to us a little bit more, I think, because as of right now, there's no hype whatsoever, isn't there? You know, like, there's hype for U10, but it's really, really dissipated just because it's coming out later in the year, and we're so skeptical of why they ended up delaying it. Anyways, who cares? I'm rambling. Thanks for watching. Really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell. If you want to support me, you can always sponsor the channel by hitting that join button down below. And if you check out, you know, my merch in the description, we got the new Oh Hi merch shirt, which I'm still waiting on mine. Takes like a long time for those shirts to ship to me. I don't know why. Then there's also a link down below to Gawkbox, which is a way that you can actually donate to me for free. Check out the video in the description as well. That explains more about that. Sign on and stay epic, everybody.